Alrighty, here we go. So I'm going over the VOD review from the 4th. Let's go ahead and we'll just hop right into it.
Can we start with pharmacy?
So I have a few notes written down. Actually, I'm gonna lower this a little bit. And what I'll be doing is I'll be essentially letting the fight play through in the VOD review, so that way everybody can kind of see what happened, and then we'll break it up a little bit.
Right next to you. Okay. If that Genji comes in, we're just gonna duel him down and make sure he regrets it.
That sounds good to me. Sounds like a plan.
So right now you guys are talking about like kind of your plan of action, you know, what you're going to be doing to win these fights, which is good. However, one thing that I can recommend is that you actually I'll let this play for now. Is that you kind of have this plan set up before you actually get into the match. It's not uncommon for people to essentially have a what I like to call like a standard comp, where you basically you have your game plan already set out, and so you know how you're going to be playing it. You've practiced it. I'm gonna turn this in a little bit. But yeah, so you play it out as you've practiced it because you've done it plenty of times before, and that way you have a solid foundation to drop back onto. And then you only really swap up the comp if you are being countered, but you don't need to swap to counter them, because if you're able to match them just through, you know, team synergy and practice, then that's fine. But if they're just shutting out everything you do, then that's when you would want to swap. But this way you at least have a standard to play and practice consistently instead of doing something different every time.
I'm shooting the shield.
They're pulling back a little.
Ooh, I need some
Oh,
heals.
big move! Get the right! Get the right! Get the right!
I need some heals. Somewhere behind, somewhere behind, somewhere behind.
Fucking hell, he took me like...
Still Samurai card.
So we'll go ahead and let this fight play through. And it looks like that's about it, the end of that. Okay, so some notes that I'll just kind of bring up first. You guys need to communicate when you're pushing in and when you're kind of dropping out. And that's going to be a very important thing, because if we hop back right here, right?
They're pulling.
Where is it? So right here, McCree gets hit low, and I don't know if he called out the healing right away. He should have. But point being of McCree gets picked, and then Ana gets picked as well.
Big move! Get the right! Get the right! Get the right!
Yeah, so you should have called out healing sooner, and then they called out the Sombra behind. And only your Ana is actually dealing with it, but everybody else is pushing up. And we just called that there's a Sombra behind, and then immediately after that, you see Ryan charge in. But now you're down one of your DPS, and you're also about to be down. Oh, you're also about to be down one of your supports too. So you're going to be down 2, and you're engaging on the fight. And the biggest thing is that you're going to be losing your main healer. But also, I think this is Zarya right up here right now, who's very out of position. Because even beforehand, if this is your Ana right here, which I think it is, right here. So if that's your Ana, she can't actually see, because, you know, the big wall that's here, she can't actually see that Zarya. So she's basically going to die already. And I know that you guys also have your Pharmacy. I'm not entirely sure where they are right now, but they should also be able to help peel for the backline, because there's a lot of walls on the ground here on this map, but what Farah has is she can actually see over it. So she's playing like on top of this bridge right here. If I can actually pull up a map, maybe Dorado. I want, is it even here? I'm not really seeing it. This is the best one, I guess. So here, if your Farah, or your Pharmacy is kind of playing in this area here. Ana's here, the McCree was here, then you have, like your Ryan, Zarya. Farah is able to lob rockets into them, but also peel for the backline as well. And she can play this clock tower right here for some aerial cover in case they have any hit scan. And she can also rotate through pass over and play this building right here as well for some cover. And again, she's able to put rockets into peel and into the enemy's backline. But yeah, you guys split yourself. Yeah, because you're down 2, and then Zarya was up too far. So Zarya died way in front of the Ryan. So you guys, Zarya, Ryan, you guys just have to talk to each other a little bit more. She might have gotten booped in. I'm not entirely sure. But you have to be careful not to split like that, because Zarya, without any healers or a shield, is going to die very fast. And Ryan tried to push in a save, but it was already a lost fight right here, which is another thing. So we've already lost this fight, so we didn't need to use the res, because we were down 1, 2, 3. We resed it, but we can't win that fight, and so the best thing instead is just to kind of pull out and go again. Because there's a potential that, especially because that Sombra hasn't actually been dealt with yet. She's still in the back line, or could be still in the back line. And so getting that res off, yeah, you might get your other healer back, but the fight is already over. And there's a potential that the Sombra will just build even more ult charge. Yeah, so Sombra was able to get your other support and some more ult charge. Instead, you guys should have just pulled out after you lost those 2 in the back. That way you can stay a bit more grouped, stay more coordinated.
You want me to go Diva?
Grounded for a little bit.
Yeah. Diva might help.
If I like can't get anything.
Yeah.
Life.
Alright,
Nice.
It's a good pick.
I'm watching for Summer behind.
They're all playing behind the corner. Sombra.
Summer's somewhere behind. I don't know where
Summer's
it is.
on cart, Summer on cart.
Sombra's on cart, yeah.
No?
Stormer's got no hack for a second. I blocked it.
So right now, this Sombra seems to be causing a lot of problems for you guys, or at least you guys are definitely aware of her. Just make sure that your McCree keeps his flash ready for the Sombra, or like if she just used her translocator to get out, then he can use it for something else, knowing that it'll be off of cooldown by the time he needs it again. But he should be sticking very close to the Ana, because an Ana and a McCree is going to be a very hard time against a Sombra, especially if they react at the same time. You know, they just turn and deal with her real fast and then go back. Because with Sombra, it's not always about killing her. The McCree allows for good kill potential, but with Sombra, if you're able to force out her translocator, you're doing your job, because the last thing she wants is to be sent back.
Summer, I got hack.
Summer's one.
We're down an Ana. We're down Ana.
So, yeah, we're gonna let this whole thing play through real fast.
Oh, damn it. Well, we got it.
Alright,
Got it.
We got it.
Alright.
I got bad spawn.
So we didn't really need the noon here,
Summer's one.
especially when you guys got these 2. Those are 2 really good picks. They're down an off tank and the Sombra. Now, granted, you are down your main support, so you have to play carefully here. But like right here, and it's unlucky. It's really unlucky that the Ana got away there, but it happens. But I don't know, the new, it's not necessarily that it was bad, but it just probably wasn't the best use either, because they were all kind of already on the retreat.
Almost got it.
They just get a lucky tire and are able to clean that up.
I got bad spawn. Give me a minute.
Oh, you gotta be shitting me.
But you guys got points, so it doesn't really matter that much.
Do you want Widow now instead of Sombra?
Yep, he's right.
I'm gonna go.
I'll
Stop.
push her off. She's back up.
She's back up.
Do you want me to go
I'm
Widow
gonna
and
go
contest that or no?
I'd go Widow or Ashe, yeah.
Okay.
Just so there's an extra set of pressure on.
Okay, cool. I'll switch when I die.
Yeah. Good. Yeah, they've got Junk Widow
They
now.
have a Widow second floor main.
She's now right in front of Bank. She's bridge. She's 1 HP.
Alright, so I'm just gonna pause just for a second for positional pieces here. A Widow v Widow here is not a bad idea, especially coming up to the second point, because there's this high ground here, as well as the high ground on the other side. It leaves a very big open area. I'll pull up another map actually of Dorado. Here we go. So yeah, with this whole area here, in combination with this area here, it leaves a lot of high ground. And so McCree is going to have limited use because his fall-off range is going to come into effect. Like, if McCree is over here and they have a Widow here, he's going to have fall-off and she won't. So she'll be winning that more often than not. An Ashe isn't bad, but again, because it's such an open area, it'll be hard to really get great value out of Dynamite. I mean, you'll be able to hit, like, you know, guaranteed 1 or 2 people, but, you know, compared to if they were in a hallway and you can get 5 or 6 of them, compared to that, it's not going to be as valuable. It's not a bad pick, but I think a Widow here would be really good, being able to play, you know, either in church, straight down this LOS, or if you can get over to the courtyard, play this LOS, or play here. Because wherever you are, your Pharah can take the opposite side. So Pharah can definitely be over here because she can play this church tower right here for cover. Or she can play the bank roof. The bank roof isn't the best spot, but it's okay. And she can put a lot of damage straight onto point. Or if she's playing this tower here, she can put a lot of damage into the entire area. So if she's playing here, she'll have this angle kind of covered. And so you can play either in church or kind of like in this pass area to put on a lot of crossfire. But they have a Widow right here, right? I'm going to change it to black so it'd be easier to see. So they have a Widow right here, just lobbing down this alley here. What you guys can do is you can play under this balcony here and essentially break LOS of that Widow, because you can still push cart and basically just let your Pharah kind of put pressure on until you get closer. Because all this time that you're walking up, she's just pounding shots into you guys. But if you just played it farther to your right, you would sight her until you can close that gap. And then with you here and her up here, that's not going to have any damage fall off. You'll be a bigger threat than when you're way down the alley. Also, knowing that they have a Widow, you want to be very careful about not playing behind a shield. I mean, you have some cover from the cart, which is good. But like if their Widow, you know, rotated to back here, and if she's good at landing her shots, this isn't safe for you.
Oh, no,
So be careful about off angling when they have somebody who has, you know, that high kill potential.
Too late. She's full.
I saw that exactly.
Yeah, this is a dangerous chase.
Try and grab him on this left corner.
Everyone grab so I can power it. Widow got me. I'll be on it. Give me a second. Oh fuck, what the
We
fuck?
have no heals.
I'm backing up. I'm gonna be dead. I'm going Diva.
Yeah, Neva, I'm having a hard time with this last
No,
point.
Yeah, you kind of got staggered there.
Do you still want me to switch off? Yes, no?
No.
It's unlucky, but it happens.
Widow's across on me.
I'll still do Mercy for the Ashe 1 click.
And then Bra here this fight.
We're going shield.
Going up for the Widow in 3, 2.
Widow's on top. You see her, Fox?
Yeah.
She's dropped. She's
She's
in
off
church.
at the moment. She's back up.
No jump.
She's on the ground.
Widow's on the cart, 1 HP. Widow's purple in the back.
I got 3.
So, although that was a really good ult, you had a very big stretch of silence there. You should have communicated with your team what your plan was, so that way they can all kind of help you. Because it was kind of like a happenstance that they engage at the same time as you nooned, and the enemy team simply could not react fast enough. But it's important for your team to know what you're doing. So like the idea was definitely good. It was a good idea. But like I said, you just have to talk to your team and tell them, hey, I'm going to, you know, go behind and noon them.
She's on the ground.
Because that way your Ryan can know, okay, well, we're going to noon so we can try and shatter if they turn to block it or things like that.
I got 3.
Nice.
I'm on the Rhine.
Yeah, it was a good ult. You just got to make sure to communicate with your team. That way you can synchronize certain things.
You guys stay pushed up. Note that no one can see you right now. If you need healing, pull
Pulling
back
back,
behind the door.
pulling back.
I'm on it.
Oh, never mind. You got mercy. I'm so sorry. Alright, push up. We're cleaning anyone up who's here. And anyone left?
Sorry, I'm on
Sorry.
Zarya.
Junction weak up top, Math. Junction weak on the bridge.
I'm out of mech. Zarya's on
Sorry,
left.
still half. Sorry, still.
Zarya's up.
Yep.
Tracer behind us. On Ariana.
I can't see you, bro. Pull left.
So now that you know that they have a tracer, you
Zen's
should
underneath.
kind of be
Rob behind you,
holding
Zen.
your
Rob
flash to help deal with her.
Tracer's down.
You.
We'll see if you do that.
On the
Good,
bridge.
damage
Don't
boost,
don't-
next
don't about the tire high right.
I'm just keeping an eye
Oh,
out.
stay alive,
Guys,
Brian.
save. Like, guys.
It's high right. It's about to drop on you. It's right above you.
Oh,
I
that's
missed all three shots.
bad. That's unlucky. It's not like a. Oh, I would say if you hear tire like that, you guys want to stay spread out and try to limit the amount of use it has. I know you didn't have too much reaction time, but even then, it's hard. It's hard to say, but yeah,
Just had the exact
if
same
possible,
idea.
you want to try and stay spread out for that tire. Especially if it was just like U3 in there, none of U3 can block that tire. You just have to
No, I
hope to
should've
kill
took
it.
my shots. I suck.
But in the off chance that you don't kill it in time, you want to reduce how effective it can be, just by staying spread.
Left somewhere.
What do we have?
I am 10 from
No,
Bob.
Tracer's
We
on
have
the right. Tracer's on the
everything
right. No
except for
recall.
bomb and-
I can't see you, Gab.
I have the health
I'm
pack.
on her.
Don't worry.
Alright, bro. I'm gonna push V. We're gonna push up main. They're also
no
looking.
blink.
Their junk's dead.
Their Zen is sleeping in the stairs.
It was a good pick there, but again, you should be trying to save your flash for that tracer.
All on fire. All on fire.
Tracer no recall on car.
There's
Yeah.
shield behind
Also,
you, bro.
going back to just calling ults.
Tracer's on me. Half.
Zen's down. They have no supports.
Going. I'm damage boosting.
Zen's down.
Tracer's,
Or Rin's down.
Tracer's coming towards you, Gab. Up top.
Towards me up top. Okay.
No, she's,
Yeah.
no, she's on
Good
your
call,
high
yeah.
He's down.
What
Tracer
health pack?
behind us right.
Behind us, right?
Tracer's
Alright.
Now going up top.
I'm gonna go on card just in case she jumps on.
They're
Tracer behind. Coming from Bob. She missed.
Nice.
Gotta keep track of your ammo.
Weak.
Also, with tracer, it's best to flash and just shoot just one tap in the head. It's gonna be more consistent, and that way you don't have to worry about things like that happening.
I'm bombing.
On cart is a tracer.
I'm backing my mech.
Tracer's one.
Tracer no recall. Tracer no recall. Get the Zen first.
Tracer's gonna pulse bomb. Try to eat it. Oh fuck.
No,
Yeah,
it's
I'm
not
getting
good.
it.
Oh, are you
Damage
shitting?
him both too.
Alright, yeah.
That's not. Oh, I live.
Oh, never mind. We're all here.
She's one. Tracer's one. Tracer no recall.
Alright, let's go. Out. Just get out.
Yeah.
Right idea with the flash there, but what could have helped is if you threw it right at your feet.
We have high
If
noon
she's
and
close
dagger
like
again.
that,
High noon
because
dagger.
I'll pause her fast. So I'll try and all right. So here's like the honor here, right? If this was a McCree, and he throws flash, it explodes about here. Actually, honestly, it probably goes a little bit farther than that too. It probably no. So it actually goes to about here and then goes off. So if tracer is here, instead you want to just throw it right at her feet, because it's a longer distance, to throw it straight forward, so it gives her a lot less time to react if you just throw it down. And so all you do is, like, if this was first person, right? Here's your revolver. Right, here's the chamber. Here's your little hammer in the back. Is you throw it down at the ground and then just aim straight up and then click her in the head. So it's like down up. And it's a really
Behind
easy,
him.
consistent way of dealing with those tracers.
Get behind him. We'll try.
Yeah, I don't know how I'm gonna get.
There's a second
Because it
floor
gives
step
them less
and
time to
goes
react to the
mid
flash,
beyond left.
and
So you might wanna
it
use
makes
that
aiming
entrance.
for you easier because you just go down, up. You're like, go down, hit E, go back up, left click.
Tracer's behind us, high left. Tracer's to your guys' left. She's looking to drop in and stick someone. She's recalled.
Yeah, she went all the way.
Got her.
Zen, huge.
Nice.
Good shot.
This hard.
Roadhog up top.
Hogs up top.
No hook.
Hook
This
on
is
fire.
good playing inside of here.
Reaper's on fire. He's Reaper no wraith. He's about to drop on point.
Hogs out.
Ryan purple.
Hogs out.
Hog purple.
I'm dead.
Shield.
Oh, try.
Thank you.
Reaper. We only have Mercy. We only have Mercy heals and she's purple.
Guy, shield's almost broken.
Lucio on fire.
Lucio's dead. Ryan. Oh,
Move
huge.
guard.
Hog.
Got him.
I can res that.
Reaper.
He's dead.
Alright, so let's go ahead and play this back. Going back
Drop on point.
Hog's out. Hog's out.
and back. Okay.
She's recalled.
It was a good pick on the tracer there.
Nice.
And then you guys are able to push up and take the space, which is good.
Roadhog's on top.
You called that Roadhog on top, so it was a good move playing Closet here.
Reaper's on fire.
However, right now you guys don't actually have a target focus, and that's less than ideal. You eventually called the Hog as the target after he was like antied and stuff, but if you guys can, try to look for a target beforehand and don't be afraid to change it later on if you need to. But it's good to at least have something to shoot at, because DPS are kind of like just mindless bots. They're just gonna shoot at the first red thing they see more often than not. Or sometimes they'll shoot at red things that are far away. Sometimes they shoot at red things that are close. But it's always good to make sure you're shooting at the same red thing, and it can also help with your teammates if they have something they can contribute, or if they have an idea, they know at least where to focus that. So if Ryan is looking to fire strike, instead of fire striking the other Ryan, if you guys are all calling Hog, he might try and aim it for the Hog. And just things like that, adding in any little bit of synergy just into a focus target even at the start of the fight is good.
Hog purple.
I'm dead.
Shield.
Oh, try.
Thank you.
Ryan on fire.
That was a good sleep, and that was a good finish. And then right here, it was a very good synergy by you and your team to be able to flash and kill this Reaper before he did too much damage.
We only have Mercy. We only have Mercy heals and she's purple.
And I mean, again, with calling out the ults, but we've already gotten
Lucio on fire.
over that.
Lucio's dead. Ryan. Oh, huge.
So like right there, you guys were calling the Lucio, and he died very quickly. Although again, it was a little bit of a late call. It's still a good call, because again, any target is better than no target. And then you guys sync up your abilities well and that. Although I'd say try to call when you're doing stuff, especially with McCree, who has a I like to call them enabling abilities, which is like there's proactive abilities and reactive abilities. Like an on a sleep is a very reactive ability because you use it in response to something, whereas with the enabler, the proactive abilities, that would be more like a McCree flash, because it's something that you can use to combo other things up with. It's the start of a chain, whereas Anna's sleep is typically somewhere in the middle. So, whether it's like a freeze or a slow or even just like a boop, you typically combo sleep with something else. It could even be like a part of the enemy, if it's a Ryan that's charging, or, Ryan that's charging on a sleep, something like that. But she uses it as a reaction. Whereas McCree is able to use his flash to start a chain of, synergy. And so it's important to be calling out when you're going to be doing that, because that Hog got knocked away kind of far, and you ended up missing the flash because of it and got no value. Whereas if you just said, oh, flashing Hog, or, stunning Hog, that way your team knows not to displace him. I think it was the Ash Coach Gun that knocked him away. But that way she knows just to wait a second for the flash, get off a little bit more damage, and then do the knockback, or, something like that. So that way you guys don't have anti-synergy with one another.
Nice, guys.
Nice job, boys.
Whoa.
I thought it had
No, what
the
about
Galaxy
play?
Brain play.
No, we don't. We're playing 6 maps. We're not doing overtime.
Alright, I'll be right back. I'm going to the bathroom.
Bruh, I thought I had a Galaxy Brain play with that Bob, because he shattered you and I thought he was about to charge you, so I was throwing Bob to intercept, and he didn't do it, so I looked like an
Yeah,
idiot.
don't worry about play of the games
I just ran harmlessly
and
by.
scrims. Scrims are meant for practice, not to stroke an ego.
He really was. He just went right on out of there.
It was like, whoa, hi there.
Yeah, I see it.
Alright, so in Hanamura we have Rin and Fox will be healing with Fox M, or Fox in his DPS with Gab.
I'm going to skip ahead to the next map.
I think that was again.
Should be like right about here.
Because I'm better at talking after a fight.
Oh shit.
What do they have?
There you go.
I hear a diva.
Diva.
I
Looks
think
like
one of them's coming right side. Oh,
let him come through. Let him come through.
Oh, I fell for it.
Did you bait?
Ryan's, Ryan's thing.
Oh, good stun. Good
Sombra
stun.
right side.
1 second on the wall.
Eric,
Get him.
keep her low and right.
Yeah, Zarya.
Sorry, you can die.
Get Ryan.
Run.
Oh, I'm
I'm dead.
dead. I'm dead. Sombra on point. Sombra on point.
Baby,
Sombra
baby,
on
baby.
point.
Oh no.
So they're calling a Sombra on
Down
point.
both tanks. Sombra on point. Don't let take oh, thank you.
Oh, he's won. Right.
But he kind of tunnel visioned there on that Zenyatta and got punished for it. He got a bit greedy.
Sends one outside.
Just turtle up on point. Where I?
Yeah, you guys kind of broke your own team's energy there, and well, that's what happens.
Back.
Sometimes you got to give up a kill to help your team.
Oh no.
In this game, it's always better to peel for your teammates than it is to trade, especially on a map like this. Because the spawn point is so far away that if you trade, they're gonna be back before you are.
Me too, but
I'm just gonna keep stalling.
Yeah, you always just want to look to keep your teammates safe before trying to kill an enemy.
May's almost out of mech. May's almost out of mech.
there's gonna be 4 of us here in a second. If you want to get here, now's the time.
No, Ryan.
Good boop on the Rhine.
Nice.
Didn't necessarily need the wall there. I'm assuming it was to, in case he didn't actually get knocked fully off, you'd be able to essentially stop him from going back to point and contesting. Which is not a bad idea by any means, but it's just a matter of kind of recognizing when he's over. Also, another thing is don't be afraid to just throw walls up to split the team even in the fight. Like, you can throw a wall right here, or like even right here, and it just causes confusion and can still sight people.
Sombra's gone.
Keep
We have this. We have this.
Play, dude. Holy shit.
It's on. It's on.
Oh, he doesn't have it. Sorry.
Oh, I have May.
I got trans out.
That's unlucky.
Shit.
So you just use trans, so you should be looking to use this blizzard for the next fight, knowing that they're not going to have a counter to it.
Do you want to grab on this?
Got baby. Got baby.
If you see someone do it, let you low.
I'm coming back with mail.
Oh, huge hack.
Oh, we don't have.
I'm down.
No more else. No,
Hack.
let's get out.
I should have chanced it earlier.
Nah, you're fine. We'll have
Do
transfers
we
next
wanna
time. What do they
switch,
have?
or are we gonna?
Don't go in. Your team is already called for you to not go in. Don't go in.
I'm gonna keep this.
They don't have EMP anymore. They don't chance. They don't have grab.
They
They
probably
still have
have
sound barrier and shatter.
They
that's
use sound barrier and the
Did
grab.
you see? Oh right, yeah. So they only
Let's say,
have.
hey, we're gonna look for a shatter first. If we don't get the shatter,
Guys, I'm
you
turning
just
with
have
mail to
mail.
switch.
Yeah, use the mail if we don't.
I'm
Yeah.
On top left.
Right now,
Top left.
you guys are calling out your essentially your next win condition, which is really good, because in Overwatch should run in waves. If it's not running in waves, then you're kind of staggering too much, and that's a problem in itself. But essentially, there's 4 big parts, right? Which is 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. So with that in mind, these are the four actual phases. Is you have your poke phase, right, which is like this part right here, which leads up to the actual fight, like the actual team fight, right? I'll just do TF, right? So the actual team fight is what happens right here. It's a weird arrow, but whatever. But that's the actual team fight. That's where everything happens. So you poke. Then there's the team fight, and then there's this phase right here, which is the cleanup phase. And this is when, after you've essentially won the fight, you've done your win condition, you've won, you got 3 or more picks, you just finish cleaning the rest up. That's when any staggers would happen. That's when you would look to reposition, things like that. That's the cleanup phase. And then you have this is your downtime. So we like to say you have uptime and downtime management. Uptime is being in position already to poke, then essentially using that poking phase to make sure you maintain the proper position for the actual team fight, and then you can kind of use the cleanup phase to finish anything up and reset. In the downtime is when you're talking about what you're doing next. That's when you would make any rotations. If you needed to rotate, you'd make your rotations here. This is when you're calling out your next win condition. How are you winning your next fight? Because in Overwatch, it's not about winning the match. It's how do I win the next fight, and eventually we win the game. So you're not looking for overall. You're looking for how are we winning the next fight? How are we winning the next fight? So this downtime, you talk about your win condition. What are we going to use? And that's what you guys were just talking about. You're like, all right, well, we're going to use Shatter. You know, we have Blizzard if we need to, things like that. So you're talking about your win condition, which is good. So you want to talk about your win condition and what they can do to stop it. So if we had a Blizzard and if that's our win condition, is just, all right, well, we're going to Blizzard and just kill them. If you go, okay, well, what ults do they have? You go, okay, well, they have a trans. So we have to kill the Zen or force out trans before the Blizzard. So you're identifying what they can do to stop you, and you realize that's the limit on the on your win condition. And if they don't, the second there is no limit, that's when you execute your plan, and that's when it comes down to purely execution of the fight to actually win it when you use your win condition. And then aside from that, so you want to talk about what you're going to use and how they can stop it, and then you want to talk about what they're going to use and how you can stop it. So if you know that they have Grav Dragons, you know, I not in this game, obviously, because they don't have either. Well, they don't have a Hanzo. But just say, theoretically, you know that they have Grav Dragons, and you don't have a trans. So you go, okay, we can't transit. So instead, we have to play spread out. So that way they can't get a big grab. They can only get one or two of us. So instead, that's why you use it here. So that way during this poke phase, that's right here. Oh god, this is getting messy. But during the poke phase, you know, right here, that's when you would position yourself to be spread out. So that way when the actual team fight comes, they can't execute their win condition effectively. So it's about, and sometimes your win condition is simply denying them theirs. Sometimes that's just how it is. Some fights you want to be proactive and take the fight to them. And some fights, if you just don't have enough, then your win condition is denying what they're relying on to win. And then, like I said, just executing your defense better than they can execute their offense.
I'm gonna use it first thing I see where there's like 2 or 3.
Okay.
Like
We'll do that
in
first.
a second once everyone's up here.
They do have that diva, so I'm orbed.
No, you're not.
There it is. They didn't need it. They didn't need it.
Orion can die.
Sombra behind us.
Sombra behind.
So another thing that you could have done right here, when you tossed it out, instead of backing up like this, instead push forward and throw a wall up behind to prevent a retreat, and then you can pop your shift to ensure that you don't die before they're frozen. And it also adds in another little barrier, so you can guarantee a split and a freeze, and that way your team has time to actually push in. But also, again, call out when you're ulting.
They didn't need it. They didn't need it.
Orion can die.
Sombra behind us.
Sombra behind. Ooh, I'm low.
Sombra gone. It's on Zarya. Zarya,
I'm
no
gonna break.
push.
Summer behind.
Missing Ingress.
Summer TP'd out. She's below, I'm pretty sure.
You don't really need a wall that right now. Right now, it looks like your team wants to push out. So instead what you can do is turn your wall to be this way, and then throw it right here in these windows in that doorway. So essentially anybody that's out on this balcony is cut off from their escape. So that way your team can simply push onto them.
You gotta either commit or pull back.
Diva's coming main.
Summer's on
Get out.
point.
Diva's out of mech.
Let's group up back up on point.
She's below.
Sombra's headshot.
Oh, jeez.
Bubbling you in a second, bruh. Get the Zarya, Zarya's
energy low.
Should've just shot her in the head.
Transfer
I'm gonna-
second defensive.
I'm gonna grab them on the left here in a second as soon as I get.
Then second floor if anybody can see.
super lit.
I have no shield.
Also, it's important after taking a one-on-one fight like that to keep an eye on your health. Just because, I mean, I know it sounds a little silly, but you're always going to be more effective alive than dead. Even if you're late and alive, it's better than dying, because then you're going to be late anyways and dead.
We're down 2.
They have no rhyme.
Yeah, definitely shattered.
Get Lucio.
Good kill.
Focus in, right side. I get Zarya.
I'm coming left side. I'll have a bubble.
Flash and headshot the diva. Oh.
Zarya.
Okay. Alright, good cleanup.
Below, maybe she was below. I'm pretty sure. I saw. Thought it
Stagger?
was drop. Oh, she
She
just
just
dropped.
jumped off.
Come back up.
I have Deadeye.
Alright,
I have 20
good
on
work.
alt and then switch.
Alright, so we're definitely gonna have
Zen,
to
stop
use
left
that.
side.
Also, right here, and this is the, you know, the in between. This is your downtime management. This is the perfect time to be holding shift and analyzing, like right now. So you go, okay, we have Deadeye, we almost have Rally, and that's it. That's all we really have coming into this next fight. So what can they do to stop it? So they have a diva. So right now, their diva is gonna counter your Deadeye. And then Rally will just give some extra armor, and aside from that, they can't really do anything about that, but they can match it with Beat. So Beat will kind of match that. So your guys' win condition is essentially go, okay, well, what are they going to try to do to win this next fight, and how can we stop it? Or if we're going to try and use a Noon, we have to demech that diva first. We have to demech the diva first. They're probably going to have EMP. They haven't used EMP yet, so they're going to have EMP. They're going to have Shatter. They're going to have Beat. They just used Bomb, so they're not going to have that. They're going to have a lot of ults over here, or at least from what I can remember. I haven't seen them use very many yet, and so they have a lot of ults in the bank. So Noon can beat a Zarya grab, Trans, Shatter, but you have to be careful about being hacked. So this is going to be a prime target, and this is going to be a prime target. So these guys kind of equal each other out, so that just kind of depends. But your two top targets should be these two. So that's what you guys should be looking to focus down, because they're probably just going to try and grab EMP. So they're going to look to do this. So you guys are going to want to be careful,
Let's group up top left.
especially if the Zarya is playing more aggro.
They have EMP, right?
Back out a little, we're not there yet.
Yeah,
Top
probably.
left, top left.
Yeah, so Zarya's playing really aggro, so she's looking for a grab. See, there's the EMP. Oh, okay, so they EMP Shattered instead. Yeah, so it's a matter of identifying what they're going to try to do so you know how to play. Because if you guys called out the EMP, you know that you don't want to stay grouped, because if you all get EMP'd, you're going to be free for them to use all the other ults they have.
All targets. I'm not there. I'm coming.
I'm grab.
There's the grab, there's the trance, there's the bomb, there's the EMP. See, they're just using all their ults now,
That's gonna be good.
because they can just snowball it.
I'm not. Alright. We gotta figure something out about that Sombra.
So it's just a matter of identifying what win condition they have, and trying to play around that to deny it.
Zen goats.
Alright, we're gonna walk out as Zen goats, but if I see something I don't like, we're going back in and getting that Pharmacy.
I'll go on this time.
Okay. I'm gonna try and stay more back for like Sombra duty.
Cabs and goats.
No, I just want to do the soldier mode.
It's good to recognize the Sombra issue and then trying to deal with that.
To hide in sound barrier and have get
Yeah, I didn't have him sound barrier that fight, unlucky. I was trying to hide for them.
I think we'll probably have to use Chance and not sound barrier and save sound barrier for EMP.
Yeah.
his sound barrier gets deleted by EMP.
Yeah.
So it transfers.
I love that
unless
emote.
it's immune.
Alright, we're gonna play it slow with the choke until we can get a bubble or Discord on the Rhine.
Oh,
Math,
by the way,
can you-
wait, we should move away from the door because they're
I
probably.
feel like every DPS player has a loud ass keyboard.
But Math, can you do the May bait?
Yep. I'll Maybait it.
Wounds are. Alright, let's go now.
Alright.
Right or left?
So,
Left.
with goats, I've done a lot of like learning as well as some coaching with goats. I'm gonna pull up a map real fast. Hanamura, we're looking for just inside. This works. So, with Hanamura, okay, ideally with goats, okay. So the idea is that you want to create a concave shape, okay? If goats, I'm gonna draw this all in black for now. If goats is a ball, okay, big brush. If goats is a ball, the reason why like that quad DPS strat works is because A, they're all highly mobile characters, and B, it's because they hit from multiple angles. Because goats being its death ball thing is it's a very single directional comp, meaning everything we have is going this way. Okay, we have to turn around. So now everything we have is gonna go this way. Okay, we have to turn around. Alright, everything we have is gonna go this way. It's a very single directional comp. And where it fails is if they get split. So if they go some here, it splits them down the middle. That's when they lose. And so essentially what you're doing is with their death ball, you're creating a concave shape. So you have some people here, some people here, some people here. So you're able to hit them from these multiple angles. But the thing is your focus is still in the same direction. So you still have that same issue of the single directional comp. But you are splitting them. You're doing minor off-angling. And so minor off-angling would be like, and this is, by the way, just heads up, just to clarify, this is only for goats v goats. Goats v goats is where this works. So if you had a like a Diva Lucio up on perch right here, right? So Diva Lucio, and then this is like if they're defending, you're attacking, they're able to just put damage in from the side right here, and then Ryan kind of walks in, right, and kind of goes this way a little bit. If Zarya kind of plays, so here's the Ryan. If Zarya kind of just plays over here a little bit, she's able to get a minor off angle. She's still very close to the fight, but it's a very minor off angle. And then Diva Lucio can simply rotate to balcony. So Diva Lucio, Zarya is kind of here. Ryan is here with the Brig. So Ryan and Brig. And then you would have your Zen like back here in the gate. And the reason why is because Ryan and Brig is a very powerful combo as well. Zarya is still able to bubble herself and bubble the Ryan. And so Zarya is able to hit on one side of the shield, Diva Lucio on the other side, and Ryan straight ahead. And then you kind of keep your Zen far in the back because, I'll go and lower the brush size now. Because this way, if Zen is way back here, if they grab, he can still walk forward and block the grab. But another thing is this way he's safe. He's able to be way back here and, you know, still put on discords. He's still able to put harmonies on, and he's safe. He doesn't have to worry about dying. The Lucio Diva, they're both highly mobile characters, so you're abusing their mobility. And Lucio's aura is still hitting the Rhine on the ground, especially if he's playing close enough to the edge. And so they're able to put damage in, still help the team. And the thing is all the enemy can do to counter them being up there is send their own Lucio and Diva. And again, that's splitting. They're splitting themselves. Because as soon as those two go, then your Ryan can just walk onto them, and then your Zarya is still here. Because now they're going to be looking in a few different directions and just going to get split that way. So having this minor off-angling is going to be really good. Also, with the Lucio up on this high ground, here, let's go and write this out. So if there's Zen, Brig, Lucio, and then there's Ryan. It's kind of hard to say. Ryan, Zarya, and Diva. Yep, that's a D. So if you have that on both sides, right? Z, B, L, R, Z, D. I'll change colors right here. So essentially, the Zenyatta is meant to counter Zarya Grav. The Lucio Beat is meant to counter the Rhine Shatter. And then you have the Brig Rally and the Diva Bomb. These are kind of used intermittently. They can kind of be used to soft core replace Zen or Lucio if it's not available, but more often than not, it doesn't work. So instead, you can use these two a bit more liberally. You can use Brig's Rally just for an engage, or you can use Diva's Bomb just for like a disengage or an engage. So those two are kind of more free to use. The Rhine Shatter, Zarya Grav are going to be used to enable a fight, and they play off of each other. So Rhine can shatter while they're knocked from the shatter. Zarya is going to build up another Grav. When they're all in Grav, Rhine is able to essentially swing onto that or Fire Strike and build up his shatter from that. So they're able to bounce off of one another between fights. And so essentially, if you know that they have, if you have both Rhine and Zarya ults, you know that they have trans but not beat, then you're going to want to use the Rhine Shatter and vice versa. So that's what you want to be looking for ults. Again, in a strictly goats v goats.
They got a Ryan's
they're going
Zarya
to
and a Diva.
That's how they make goats.
I'm gonna bait it out. Wait, hold on. I'm baiting.
Oh,
It's alright, it's alright.
Nice. Good bait.
Back up a little bit.
We're going right or left?
Left.
Good eat.
You have a Zarya.
And a
They got
Diva.
a Ryan's
they're going
Zarya
to
and a
tank.
Diva.
That's how they make goats.
I'm gonna bait it out. Wait, hold on. I'm baiting.
It's alright, it's alright.
Nice. Good bait.
Push.
Push.
Just play right side, a little slow till we get the ramp.
We can get this Mei. Okay.
Oh fuck, what the fuck happened?
Back.
So you guys are a bit staggered in your target focus right now, and you need to look to discord the Rhine and then burn him down first. It was fine to get that the Mei ice block out because it's going to force her to play more passively, and if she doesn't, then you can quickly punish her. But it's important to all be on the same target at the same time with that discord.
Tight.
Back. Farther back. Keep it all the way back.
Ooh.
All the way to spawn.
Full charge.
Okay, we're back. They're out.
Ready to go?
Is everyone here?
Yep.
Yeah,
Now you might have to
everyone's
go up top on the left side to distract the Mei from window.
I'm gonna bait it out again.
It's on Rhine. Rhine's melting.
He has no barrier.
She's
You're walled off,
I was
you're
gonna
walled
say,
off.
wall's coming.
Coming to help.
Who we on?
Mei's one.
Diva.
Use
got
that
a
back.
Diva's gonna get.
Diva again.
Get baby.
Wow, that was so quick, the nano. Can we get on Ryan?
You guys are again a little staggered in your
It's on Rhine.
target focus.
It's on Ana.
Three of them on grab.
I'm shooting.
You're right. Or sorry.
Good clean up there.
Alright, so yeah, well, let's just call that way more. We're gonna do a bomb shatter. We're gonna walk in main. I'm gonna throw a bomb, and then when Ryan turns around, let's shatter it.
Math, I'm in charge.
Can you
They-
come get
they
me?
do
Can you
have
tax me?
Good job. You're talking about
Or else
your
gonna be
next fight's win condition.
Yeah.
That's exactly what you want to be
For
doing.
bomb shatter, we want to wait for walls to go down.
Yes,
Yeah.
definitely.
Yeah, just go under. Let's try to bait the wall again.
Let's
So,
go
yeah,
main then, right?
May.
Mei is top right with the Zarya.
Watch for the
So
wall.
maybe we can. Mei.
Cap.
Yeah, I'm trying to pull back.
No, stay in it.
Can you hit it, man?
Good counter. By the trans.
We got this.
That wasn't a bad use of trans at all.
Zarya.
It allowed you guys to kind of stay in that fight.
Zarya's out of the fight for a little bit. Zen, turn around.
Now you want to look to pull back.
Zen, still Zen.
We got this.
All targets.
Focus Mac.
Good picks.
Sorry.
Right now, though, you guys are kind of filtering onto point and trading. Yeah, so you guys should just look to regroup here because Hanamura and Anubis are both very well known for their stall potential. And the best way of creating that stall is simply by trading like 1 for 1 or 2 for 2, something like that. Because defense has a huge spawn advantage, so unless you get 4 kills and you still have like number advantage, they'll be able to simply just stagger back out onto point and deny any progress, and instead all you're doing is just wasting more time. When you lost your Rhine is going to be the majority of your damage. Between Rhine and Zarya, they're going to be the majority of the damage in the comp, and so with them down, you're not going to kill them fast enough to actually make any significant progress.
Oh no, never mind. They're shooting. Oh, thank God.
We're down.
Right there, you guys just got very split.
Out, but there's a widow on the other side that might. Get mech.
Get this deal.
Mech half.
Oh, let's get out.
That widow's half. Widow dead.
They kill. You have Lucio now and Sound
We can go in. They don't have widow.
I just doubled up a little bit. Yeah, that's fine. Rally's fine.
My frames are dying.
Get mech.
Zen.
Good job burning the diva.
I got baby.
Oh, left side.
I'm out at the fight for a second. We need to barrier. We got it.
I used it.
Oh no.
I have grab here in a second.
I'm about to bomb.
Mine's out for a fight. Mine's out for a bit.
Oh no, I'm sleeping.
Grabbing.
You're so low on
Zen
health.
on left.
He's dead.
Ryan shattered.
Get Ryan.
Right now, again, you're just not able to. You're not focusing your targets, and so you're not killing them fast enough.
Ryan one.
So you're just staggering a lot. You need to be able to burn down targets quickly.
Almost there.
Ryan.
I got grabbed.
I'm dead.
Oh, they did just
No,
use
use it, don't use
grab,
grab.
so that's not bad at all.
No, I got grabbed.
Oh, I
I
think
don't
you
have
have
grab. I
Gotcha.
used grab that fight.
I thought it was a little fast. It's like,
It went
whoa,
back to the
that's
man.
fast.
Yeah.
Is there anything we want to switch up, or do we want to keep running goats?
We might want to try the.
You want to try Pharmacy on the inside?
No.
Actually, we do have both support ultimates, so.
I could go Widow and flank from the left if we want.
They
See if I can
switched off
pick.
the widow. They have May again.
Right, but I'm saying I could see.
Yeah, no, I see what you're saying.
Alright, do they have Shatter? It looks like he's walking like he's got Shatter.
It's on Ryan.
I'm pretty sure
It's
you
good
should
to be cautious of that, especially.
Alright, we're down main tank. That's,
So you guys aren't gonna want to push up that way with that May, because she is gonna wall you off. Unless what you guys could do
Oh fuck.
is again send a Lucio Diva to the far left window and just put on some crossfire, and force the enemy team to pay attention to you. And the second they pay attention to you, the rest of your team can walk in. Because then they have a Lucio Diva on one side and then the other 4 behind them, and so they have to kind of pick where they want to go.
Let's push main, I would say.
Yeah.
I was baby, so.
Oh.
It's a good trade.
You start
Are we
pushing
pushing
in.
main?
I'll be
Yeah,
back.
pushing in with that.
Alright, go.
Yeah. Sound barrier first.
Yeah, I got you.
Ana has no nade right now.
Watch for the shatter.
I miss. I'm an idiot.
Get Zen.
Zen
Nice.
down.
Oh fuck.
Oh, I'm dead. Oh, I'm left.
Oh,
Oh,
nice.
big beat.
I'm purple.
You guys
I
aren't.
got deleted in trans.
You guys aren't
Unlucky.
talking to each other. You don't know who you're
You have no
focusing.
Lucio? No ults. We still have one more fight.
I have grab. I'm at 95.
Grab rally.
We don't have support ults. If you want to switch to pharmacy, now we'll keep the gem.
Fox, you got a
Well, if Fox.
He has rally.
Oh, we have rally. Never mind.
Alright, let's do it. have. They probably have
Yeah.
nano. They haven't used it.
Yeah,
Did they use
Alright.
trance?
Wait. We don't have all the team together here. Okay, now
Alright,
we're all
we're
here. Now let's go.
They're gonna Maywall, so
Ana's on right side. Above.
I'm purple again. I live my life in a constant state of purple.
May dead.
no dead.
3 in.
Kill the Zarya.
So what? That's kind of an advanced strat, but in the grav, if they have a Zen that's transing, Ryan can actually use his shield to block LOS of the trans, and so it's only affecting half. Or Zarya can also use her bubble to break LOS. Now that one is much harder to do, but you basically stand inside of the transing Zen. If this is, and you basically just stand next to him and then bubble that way, and it's another way of blocking it. It's a highly advanced strat, but it's something at least worth noting.
Sense 1.
Just point. No one's on it.
You're all purple. You're all purple.
Zarya's 1.
And that's good. Now you guys are focusing down targets.
That's me. That's me. That's me.
So, Diva then May.
Diva, back.
Where's this Ana?
I got it. I pushed her
There
off.
we go.
Oh.
Yeah, boys.
Stressful.
Good job, boys.